Hello and welcome to this video on the perennial debate of introvert versus extrovert. I want to spend the next few minutes explaining why I don't think they actually exist, or at least the labels don't. In my research, the principles can be better understood via constructive development theory, but I would say that, wouldn't I? So I want to specifically address the idea of introvert versus extrovert from a Jungian perspective. So the video isn't about personality. We've got another video for that if you want to go and look at it. So we're going to look at it from a meaning-making perspective. Now, you've probably seen this slide before, and you know that how we construct our meaning at the age of 25 isn't the same as how we do it at 45. So then what's the issue with traits changing over time? And this is a list of traits and adjectives we typically associate with ocean: openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, extroversion, and neuroticism. Okay, please pause the video here and have a look at the slide. And to get the point quickly, when we apply the 4 pillars of CDT to ocean, we get very different outcomes than the traditional psychometric test expectations. You can see that side. So these are the attributes assigned to extroversion. But are they true? Are they real? You know, extroversion is characterized by excitability, sociability, talkativeness, assertiveness, and high amounts of emotional expressiveness. Well, people who are high in extroversion are outgoing and tend to gain energy in social situations. Being around other people helps them feel energized and excited. However, for introverts, social events can be draining, and introverts often require a period of solitude and quiet in order to recharge. Here are 3 typical questions for the discerning of introvert versus extrovert, right? So pause the video here and answer them if you wish. What do you notice about the very first question? It's leading the reader into an outcome. Do you feel more energized by? What if it were asking it differently? So, are you at choice in your gaining of energy? You know, can you choose not to do any of these things? Okay, the actual issue here is that the questions and responses become the reasons for doing the things the questions are asking about. So when you say, oh, I like to go to parties, that then becomes the reason for going to parties. It's called an isomorphism. So here's another one. However, this is a bit better explained by CDT, by the cognitive intentions, individual and team player, right? Someone could be an extrovert using this system, but an individualist in work. And this question is too simplistic in reality. What if I want an open office one day and to be left alone the next day? Are you going to say that's ambivert? Where's the conscious choice? So the next 2 slides are the output of the introvert-extrovert perspective. Can you see how generic they are? And this is called the Barnum effect, or Forer effect. It's where it kicks in. So more on this in my book, Thinking Deliberately. So pause the video here and have a read of the red text. At what point do these conditions become a therapy need? Can you see any issues with a person who is doing all of these things for the reasons listed? If you prefer to talk to someone rather than sitting alone, what do you think this could mean from another perspective? So if you think as you speak, you lack the capacity to do something, what we call the observer position, own partner observer, right? Stop, step back, and think before you answer. So this doesn't mean that you're an extrovert, nor does it mean that you're an introvert. If you do either of these things, or don't do either of these things, is it possible to be confident and friendly without being assertive? Then how would you measure it? Well, with CDT and cognitive tensions, it would look like this. So let's do it right now. From a CDT perspective, a conscious ambivert is a different construction of self to an unconscious version. Think about that for a moment. If you can consciously choose which of these 3 things you are in any given moment, then you are none of these things, or all of these things. They are simply labels for a collection of thinking patterns that you do in any given situation. And environment is key. And then this misunderstanding leads to nonsense articles on the internet like this one. Okay, so the main problem here is people think that this is a real thing. I appreciate that you could level the same claim against CDT, however, with 50 facets and our thinking combinations, and to give accurate quantitative descriptions and demonstrations of our self-awareness, I would say that after 10,000 profiles that CDT is fairly solid, and it's built on a solid foundation. I'm saying here that introvert, extrovert, they're not really built on a solid foundation, but really on dodgy research that raises huge correlations without causation issues. And if it's a spectrum, at which point of the spectrum does intention, awareness, choice, and response come in? Jen is saying that we are all on this spectrum and we have no choice. It's there, a continuum of introvert to extrovert. So the question I have is, can I choose not to be on the spectrum? Not even doing the actual introvert-extrovert thing. So according to Jen Guanaman, who wrote The Secret Lives of Introverts, which is a plug for her book, I guess, and obviously a provocative elitist title, you are an introverted extrovert or whatever, if you, and this is pure Barnum effect now, so I'm sorry, but it's just nonsense. You can be this or you can be that. At no point does it ask, when can you choose? If you can choose not to. By thinking of it as a spectrum, you're not saying specifically if you can choose to step off the spectrum. That for me is the main issue. So what's the answer? Well, I think the answer is that we separate them at our peril. All of the evidence for ocean points to unconscious habituated thinking. The tests don't ask if you can choose in a moment which factor you want to use, or even if you're capable of using it, right? So from a CDT perspective, at the higher levels of the awareness quotient, we know that the requisite cognitive intentions are used by the individual in the context from a position of awareness and choice. At the lower levels, they are not. So this leads us to the idea that whether one is introverted or extroverted is always a matter of awareness. Only a lower level thinker is one or the other. A higher level thinker is always going to be capable of choosing in the moment which way of thinking suits the environment best. And it looks like this if we apply dynamic intelligence to ocean. Okay, you can see the scale. Let's break it down a little bit more. Using cognitive intentions, we can get a specific measure of each facet within ocean's 5 factors. There you go. Extrovert, extrovert. These are the positives and the negatives from both sides of the debate. And when you put them together, we get a specific measure of someone's capacity and capability to actually do extroversion. Using CDT, we can deconstruct extroversion into its component parts and measure the outcome from a choice perspective. Standard psychometrics cannot and do not do this. And it works with the others too. So think about openness as just an unconscious habit. Openness thus becomes an intention. Remember, we said at the very beginning that at 25 years of age and 45 years of age, we have completely different ways of creating meaning around the word openness. You could be intentionally open to new experiences rather than simply being open. And that's a choice the current systems do not measure. And as per the last slides, openness is now measurable from a choice perspective. So the question then shifts from one of choice to, well, how do we change it? So in a nutshell, ocean can be deconstructed by CDT and cognitive intentions to derive a score for awareness and choice of each, which then negates the labels entirely. Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe and take care.